Hi everyone. This morning I woke up and actually already yesterday it came through. I was really missing the jungle, the Peruvian jungle. I was missing my maestros. I was missing being in dieta space and in ceremony and with them. Actually, it started already yesterday or maybe the day before. I was the last weeks very much in my head. I was studying a lot and doing a lot, many hours every day with the computer. And I noticed, obviously, I noticed, hey, Ute, you are not singing your Icaro. You are not really creating a calm space to connect to your diets, to connect to your plants. And this morning I woke up and just melodies came through. I was just singing and then it's so much energy moving and the heart opens. And it was a melody which I connect to my diets more with my male maestro. I call him Papa Gilberto. Because, when we diet I diet only with one lineage, but with different maestros. And it gets, the longer I diet, sometimes I feel the differences more and more, and also through the melody and the Icaro. But that's another field. I didn't want to talk about that right now, actually. It's sometimes challenging. I think maybe people out there who are listening, who are also dieting for a longer time, or I mean, I'm not dieting for such a long time, but intensely. I just diet since 5 years, but I immediately stayed here and we're dieting every year for a couple of months. But I think like people out there, I know some of my friends who are dieting with different maestros, even if it's the same lineage, at some point it gets sometimes a little bit challenging and tricky on some layers. But that's another topic. Maybe that would be another sharing. But what I want to share today is that I honor so much my maestros and the Shibibo tradition and the plants and my dietas and the possibility to diet. I live in Peru in the Andes, but right now I'm not in the jungle and I'm not sure when I can go in the jungle to diet and when it's the right time, because I'm now involved in other things where it's difficult just to disconnect and being in the jungle. And if I go there, at least I would like to be there for 1 month or longer to really focus and go deep. Yeah, and while I was singing the Icaros today and connecting to the lineage where I'm learning and working with, my God, so much gratitude came through. And then I remembered, and that's actually what I want to share here. And then came up, like all the talks I had in the last weeks, months, maybe year, especially in the last weeks. I had some talks with people who were telling me, were sharing their opinion about psychedelics and psychedelic therapy. And obviously, of course, also I can see it in media here and there showing up. And I think it's, it has a lot of potential, psychedelic medicine, in like when we think about things made in the laboratory, like handmade, and then there's a therapist who's trained, to guide people, with addiction or depression or any kind of so-called disorders. So disorders. I mean, disorder only for me means that there's a disorder in connecting in the place where we live. I mean, is it the disorder? No, that's also another topic. But however, so much always to talk about. But what I want to say, to pinpoint, is like the difference, the huge difference. I don't say good or bad, but I say this difference between a psychedelic therapy and a medication which is made in the laboratory and is taken as a pill or something in a therapy room with a therapist, or if you connect to a plant wisdom. Like plant wisdom, I mean like a plant who grew in nature, which is part of a whole organism. The plant grows with the earth, with the wind, with the water, with the sky, with the stars, like with the whole universe. A plant is embedded in a whole universe, like a human. We are a cell of the whole universe. A plant is a cell of the whole universe. And it's with the seed, with a little growing, and with the time it grows. It's connected to an unlimited network. It's connected to an organism. It's connected to a self-organizing organism. I like really in these days to watch at the self-organizing processes in the human, in the mind, in plants, in nature, in consciousness. So another topic. But like the plant, which is really a part of a universal organism, or a substance which is made in a laboratory, which I would call like a medication, yeah, which is in a context with therapy and can be very, very useful. I'm not doubting that. And then the other third part, like connecting to plant wisdom bedded in a healer lineage, bedded in a tradition, which brings like a huge other wisdom and memory and knowing and connection, because it's guided by someone who grew up in a tradition or who learned in a tradition. And I'm not saying about learning in 1 or 2 years. I'm talking about like, I mean, the real deal for me, like really meeting a healer who learned from their ancestors. But also I know, I mean, everything is changing, and some of us are also learning, and I know some Western people who really deeply learned, and they are able to transmit from the lineage they learned with memory, and they are able to transmit things which were in conscious bedded things, many years of knowledge, knowing, wisdom, how to connect the energy of an individual human with the energy of the plant, bedded in consciousness, embedded in universal wisdom. Someone who really is able to weave all these energies in a way together and doing the work, doing the cleansing, the cleaning, the alignment work, and the connection and the opening, you know, in a safe way. So there are, for me, like right now, there's 3 different things, but I just want to share for me how important it is that we don't mix them up in our awareness, that we are aware there are differences. These are different ways, very different ways, how to work and how to process and how to heal, and where do we connect to. So when we have I call it, when something is made in a laboratory, for me it's more like a medication, and a psychedelic medication can go, of course, so deep, and can open so many windows, and can help us changing perspectives in our mind and breaking patterns and neuronal pathways which were so straight, and it's with meditation or other practices, without this medications, medicines, plants, it's sometimes very hard and very difficult to break through. And these psychedelic substances made, like I said, from a laboratory, or maybe also people who maybe have therapists who have plants who really grow in the garden, it's also different than we are with a sacred wisdom plant in an organism. But that this is all very different, and I want to pinpoint especially to the difference also when we learn to heal, and when we learn to remember, and when we learn to let go in a bedded in a tradition, how much is there in it, what sometimes people are not aware, or they forget about, or they just don't know because they never connected to. And for me, it's again and again so magical, and I honor it so much, and I honor the people so much who carried their wisdom until here today. And when we do, for example, when we have the possibility to do a Masterplant diet, or to work with ayahuasca, what is also different, but I explained it in another video, the difference, that there is so much knowing embedded in consciousness, which gets channeled through the icaro, through the word in the icaro, through the sound, through the melody, which is connecting the client who sits in ceremony with these energies of this lineage, which comes through as a certain power and strength, and which is really connected deeply to universe, to the moon, to the stars, to the sun. The people where I learn with, they, at their ancestors at some point, you know, they were connecting to all these plants because they lived there. They were connecting to the earth, to the power of the earth, to the power of the water, to the power of the wind. There are different winds. They use through the eco, they call in the energy from different airs and different winds. They call in the energy of the sun, the moon, from some planets, from the earth, to work in your energetically field. And there's this magic which is in that, and this depth of energetically surgery is a very different way of energetically work and of opening the doors and getting aware, and how it works afterwards with you, especially when you did a dieta, where you are afterwards bedded in the world consciousness of a certain plant, in my case, trees. But there are many other plants, of course, not only trees. But for me, I can only talk about my experience. And that this goes in a depth of deeper understanding life and universe and magic and energies, that's a very different learning and a very different path. Also a different way of commitment, like really committing and showing up. Then when we talk about psychedelic therapy. And psychedelic therapy, I think it's amazing, it's great. You know, like many people are not able to travel so far away. Many people want to use something around the corner, and then it's amazing and great if they have a good therapist who works with psychedelics. And it can be also like a first step to other deeper steps, and to wake up. You know, waking up is a weird word, but I mean, like, you know, when your awareness expands, do you have these realizations? I prefer actually saying realizations, openings, expansions, but it's also often the sense, wow, yeah, of course, you know. What I think is okay to call I have a waking up moment, you know. And then it's about this waking up moments, how do I integrate them, you know, and how I own them. But yeah, what I want to say, when this hype with psychedelic therapies comes through and gets bigger and bigger, and so much money also goes in that also there's awareness that there are traditions and healers who work in a different way with this plant medicine, and that plant medicine in a way which grows in nature, is part of an organism, plus working with someone in a tradition brings a whole other world and context to it. And one thing, I mean, this is just what is coming up for me again and again. I think I really believe and think and see that many issues and many problems and many imbalances in our planet and in every human individually, globally, is separation, because our mind, our thoughts, our emotions, and we as humans, and all kind of layers, yeah, there's separation happening. We separate, and I just want to bring an awareness, when we separate a substance, when we produce that in a laboratory, we separate a substance from the whole organism, and we offer them in a separated context. And versus other side, when we really work with a plant who grows in the whole organism, it teaches us wholeness. It teaches us everything what goes through the plant, every wind, every memory, every vibration which the plant goes through sunlight, moonlight. I mean, we know that the moon and the sun is affecting every living essence, every living being. Yeah, I mean, we are a network. We are living as a cell in a wholeness, and the moon obviously is affecting everything, the sun, the movement of the planet. So it's affecting also a plant, the water in the plant, the water in the human, like, you know. I know for sure other people can explain that better with more explicit words, and more in a complex way, and more in a biological way and chemical way and physically way. People could go really, really deep in explaining it much better than I do. But I hope I can transport what I'm talking about. And again, it's not about doing something wrong or right. Just bringing in awareness what's there, you know. And when I take this substance, which is separated from the whole organism, what is the result? What does this create? What does it create in the long term? And just observing it, you know, and just checking in, is this just a particular healing, or is it a healing towards wholeness? And for me, this wholeness and this really, really realizing I'm part of such a huge whole system. And I have a own organism inside of me as well. And yeah. And yeah, for me, like having this huge luck that I'm since a few years with my I'm learning with, you know, where I know how much dedication it needs and commitment it needs, and how the Icaro is important. Like the singing, the opening of the energetically field, and the invitation and building up the partnership to the plant spirit, to the plant consciousness, and how it gets interweaved together and in an interaction together. This is for me one of the significant learnings and healing experiences. And I used the other, before I ended up in Peru 6 years ago, I was using other sacred plants by myself because I didn't know someone who could guide me, I say in a professional way. Neither therapists, neither shamans, healers. I just did it with friends because it just happened like that. What just happened. And I also did using different substances. So I have these different experiences, not with a therapist. What is a big difference, right? Not guided from a therapist. But for me, healing, learning is for me wholeness necessary. We need humans, if we want to survive on this planet, we need to learn about wholeness, and we need to learn that we are a little part of a huge organism. And I think this is for me what means healing. And I think we all need to be aware, whatever we do, that we check in, you know, is it really going towards wholeness? Is it going towards wholeness? Or do we just look separately on the mind or separately on emotions? Because the fine, subtle energies, which we can call spirituality, for me, it's just the knowing about the connection of all what is. The knowing of that, for me, is necessary to heal and to grow. And if we want, you know, long-term survive, I don't know if it's long-term or not, but if we want to survive, we need to connect to everything what is there and seeing our responsibility in that. And what is huge and not easy, right? And if we separate a little part of the sum, what is the effect? We don't know. Does the energy of creating that, of doing that, comes from wholeness or from a separated thinking way? And I mean, of course, to see there are many other aspects, and then to see where's the shadow side. But the shadow is with everything. I believe everything what we do creates also a shadow, and that's okay as long we are aware about, and we can be on the, how you call that, seesaw, and balancing it out. Because I believe, there's no creation, nothing is possible without any shadow. Everything what we do, at some layers there's a shadow, but it's okay. I think shadow and light, it also belongs together, but we need to be aware. We need to see when we do that and that, okay, what is the shadow part, and including the shadow in our actions and in our doing, including it and talking about it and being aware, so we can keep the balance. When we stay in the middle, we can with awareness, we can observe, being aware, about also what is happening behind us, and what are the shadow aspects when we create and do something. And that's obviously as well, for me, with working with the Shipibo tradition and with people who grew up in the jungle, there are many shadow aspects, many shadow aspects as well, as a Westerner and bringing money for groups and paying them for diets. There's also a lot of shadow what gets created, but we need to see it. And we can't avoid it. I think we can't avoid it. We can do best as we can and in different ways, however we feel called to. But we need to look at it to balance it out in the best way with what feels good for us. And the same as I think with all this psychedelic hype and therapies, really checking in what is the shadow aspect, what's happening as well. I don't know if there was some information which maybe is nice for you to also think about or to reflect on. I just wanted to pinpoint out like the really differences. Doing a psychedelic therapy is something completely different than drinking ayahuasca in the jungle in a tradition, or doing a Masterplant dieta. Anyway, something totally different. So just being aware that it's a difference, and especially a difference regarding wholeness and regarding organism, self-organization, organism, process. Higher wisdom, universal wisdom is different, which comes through a plant who grows in the jungle, connected to a tradition, or it's a different thing if it comes from the laboratory and you have a skilled, educated therapist. It's different. It's a different work. And what I also want to pinpoint, for me, it's more and more important for most of the people who work in the jungle with the plants and in a tradition, that there is, especially in the beginning, that there is someone as a therapist, as a facilitator, who can support and guide the person to work with their own mind, to work with the thoughts, to work with the emotions, to work with the body, to really get most out of this energetically surgery, what is happening there. But for example, the Shipibo Maestro doesn't know your Western mind and life challenges and things like that, your psychological patterns. Shipibo Maestro doesn't know in a way that he can talk with you through or holding space for that. He sees the things on an energetically layer where he does the work. But then how this unfolds and what comes up on a psychological level and on an integrative level, how you integrate all these differences and how you linkage them together, and how you can process that. There is, especially in the beginning or also later when you go through really difficult stuff, for me, it's very important to have a bridge who can translate shamanism, energetically work, and your Western human mind. Yeah. Thank you for listening.